Hi there. I know this video is late. I actually produced it about a week ago, but as soon as I did, it seemed not to be significant enough to go against everything else that was hitting the news out there. Um, Plus, my dog has pneumonia. He's at the vet right now. He's getting a little bit better. We're hoping to see him again. You've seen Indy. He's every once in a while appeared in one of these videos. We've had him for a long time, and dogs don't go on forever, but we hope that we can get maybe a few more years out of him. So that's one of our little worries. It has nothing to do with anything in the world, but it's the small thing stacked on top of a lot of big things that has had me in kind of a slump. And perhaps there are others that are that way as well. And I wish I had words of advice. I've done about 60 takes of this intro, by the way. I don't have anything eloquent to say. I don't have anything profound to say, except that I believe that everybody should be treated the way I would want to be treated. And COVID-19 really sucks. And that I hope my dog gets better. So, with that, we'll give you the fairly insignificant video about Space Force. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and today we're going to talk about Space Force, not the actual thing, but the television series with Steve Carell, John Malkovich, Lisa Kudrow, and others. A wonderful cast on this. We'll talk about that in a second, but the background on this is that I am a child of the 60s, and during that time, I don't think I ever missed a space launch. Even when they happened during school time, there would be someone who would bring a television into the classroom so we'd be able to see all of the space launches. I remember as far back as, I don't know, the early 60s, 1962 or something, when we used to watch all the Mercury launches, then all the Gemini launches, and certainly all the Apollo launches, and the landing on the moon. It was all very exciting to me. And I would have thought, as many people did, that by now we would have maybe a colony on the moon. It all kind of stopped in the mid-70s when the U.S. public kind of lost interest in the space program, and is now making kind of a comeback with the actual Space Force that's just been set up. Of course, a recent launch of the SpaceX rocket and capsule that has taken 2 astronauts to the International Space Station just recently. So we're very excited about this, and I feel kind of like I did when I was a kid, watching the launch of the Falcon rocket and watching the docking that we never could have seen before on such clear pictures as we did this week. And so I was interested in seeing how they would make a comedy out of this with the likes of Steve Carell and John Malkovich and Lisa Kudrow and all kinds of top-notch actors and comedians on this show that's on Netflix. Sadly, I don't think they knew where the joke was. Obviously, the show was done somewhere between the time that the president announced that there was going to be a Space Force and actual putting together the idea of what it's going to be about. And so they used mostly NASA type of motifs for all the sets and for the layout of the Space Center that they have there. And I would have thought that it could have been a mash as far as how they would have done this to make it maybe kind of a science fiction, close to science fact kind of comedy. But I don't think they knew where they wanted to go. I think the whole joke in this was that there's a Space Force. I don't think they thought that the Space Force would ever come about. And so they did this show just to show a general played by Steve Carell who is plays it straight, almost reminds me of Buck Turgidson in Doctor Strangelove, trying to play it very straight but for comic purposes. He did the same thing in The Office. However, the people around him, and John Malkovich is great, although, once again, this could have been a drama very easily. Just try not to be funny, and it could have been a pretty decent drama. But, some of the things that they did, you could see where they were trying to do it, like the woman that went picking up all the lizards before the rocket launch, and the missile blowing up, which happens. I mean, it happened just this week with one of the test rockets that SpaceX was doing for their moon rocket, and so this happens. And so all they did was just kind of show this stuff and expect us to find it funny. There weren't any jokes in it. There weren't any real. I mean, there were some annoying things. I mean, the general's clerk has a tendency to send people into his office and forward the general's orders before he makes them. And it's kind of an echo of Radar, except more annoyingly so, because unlike Radar, he never really got anything right. He would send someone in who shouldn't have been let in, or would send on an order that shouldn't have been made. And there's no footing for all of this. Now, people say, think of The Office and Parks and Recreation that had a rough start as well. Well, I've never been a fan of The Office, but I did watch Parks and Recreation, and from the time of the first episode, it was something that drew you in. Certainly with the characters there, the main ones gelled pretty quickly, and you kind of knew who they were. And I'm not really sure what this is all about, and what's the joke about the general's wife being in jail. She's in for 40 to 60 years for something. Now, depending on what kind of jail she's in, she'd have to have murdered somebody in order to do that. And what's the backstory on that? And why should we care? And what's the deal? So, and they don't attempt to make any jokes on that either. And so I'm just completely confused, if you will, as to what Space Force, the TV series, is supposed to be. So you may want to check it out. I mean, certainly John Malkovich is one of the best roles I've seen him in, actually, as the head scientist. And it's kind of a science versus listen to your gut kind of thing. And about half the time the general is right, about half the time the scientists are right. And okay, but it seems to be a show without a navigator. So I don't highly recommend this one. I've seen a couple of episodes, and I'm not going to give it too much more of my attention. We're looking for some other things in actual science fiction coming out soon, and we'll have a video on that. Meanwhile, if you've seen this show, let me know what you think about it, and we should be back in our regular place next week. Until then, don't go far.